Hello and welcome to Really Cool People, a podcast produced by Schweitzer Church. I'm your host, Jason Leininger. This is a place to hear stories of really cool people. The hope is that as you and I listen, we'll be inspired, encouraged, and challenged through moments of serendipity. C.S. Lewis, in a sermon entitled The Weight of Glory, said, "There are no ordinary people. You and I have never talked to a mere mortal. It's my joy over the next few moments to introduce you to somebody who may seem somewhat ordinary, especially themselves, and yet they are a really cool person. Today, we're going to meet Jack Hardy. Jack's going to talk about his growing up years and then how he came to Missouri and met his wife and then some of the things that he's done along the way in terms of his profession. But one of the things you'll hear Jack speak of, and he reflects on it along the way, is about living in the fourth quarter of life. And so I invite you to join me, lean in, and let's hear Jack's story. We're happy to welcome into the studio Jack Hardy. Jack, welcome.
Thank you.
Good to have you here.
Good to be here.
And let's start with your story.
My story. Okay, I don't know that I've ever told my story. But, so I'm one of three boys. I'm the oldest. I grew up or was born in Georgia. My parents are both from kind of middle Georgia. It was rural back in those days. And that's where I was born as well. Born in the mid-50s, had a good family life. My dad was he was a civil employee of the Air Force, so we did move around some. So we lived in Georgia. Then 11 years of my childhood was in Mobile, Alabama, on the coast down there, which we had a lot of fun going to the beach and that kind of stuff. We had a big old canvas tent, and we camped down by the beach on the weekends and enjoyed that. We just always did outdoor stuff. Then
did you go down by Gulf Coast down there?
Yeah, we lived at Mobile, so we were just 30 minutes over to Dauphin Island, which was pretty undeveloped back then. There wasn't much over there.
There was the old forts there at Dauphin.
Yeah, the fort was there, right.
Did you camp there?
Yeah, right near the fort.
Okay.
Not in it. It was still a park at that time, or it was already a park, but near it. Could walk to it. And there was a big old pier there by the fort.
Mm-hmm.
We fished off of and caught a lot of crabs and stuff. And my family, like I said, we've always been outdoors type people and hunting and fishing and all that stuff. And had the good fortune over the course of my life to be able to pursue those interests in a lot of different places. And but anyway, 11 years in Mobile, then we were in Long Beach, Mississippi, which is on the Mississippi coast, for a couple of years. Then my dad got transferred to Kansas City. That's where I went to high school, went to college down here in Springfield at SMS. I still call it SMS. I can't get to Missouri State yet. Graduated, had a great time there, and graduated. And a year after I graduated, I was actually out of college and working, but I met my wife. She was still in school at MSU, and met her we had common friends. She knew people that I knew, but we just the Lord didn't see that our paths should cross yet. So when they did, it was a pretty instant attraction. And we got married here in Springfield. And after we got married, I decided I wanted to go to school in Rolla, get an engineering degree. So we moved up. Actually, her grandpa had an old river cabin on the Merrimack River about 45 miles from Rolla up towards St. Louis at Bourbon, Missouri. And we lived there for 3 years out in the cabin on the river while I was going to school, commuted into Rolla every day. And she worked, I went to school, and I also worked construction. I always worked construction to get through college. So I got a job there with some guys building houses and apartments and all that stuff. Did that while I was going to school. And then after that, I don't know how much detail you want to go into, as we've moved a lot. But
you don't have to necessarily count the moves, or, I mean, you can, but I don't know. What happened to the moves? Why'd you move a lot? Mostly
jobs. Yeah. So after I graduated from Rolla, I took a job down in the mines in what they call the lead belt of Missouri. So it's about 30 miles east of Salem, Missouri. People don't know it, but the country's biggest lead mines are down there. About 95% of the nation's lead and a lot of zinc are mined in world-class, big mines down there, underground mines. So worked there for a couple of years as I had a degree in mining engineering, and the lead industry was hitting tough times and there were layoffs coming. So I left there. We went to Pittsburgh, Kansas, and I managed a mineral processing plant there for a couple of years. And then we decided we wanted to be closer to family. Her folks she grew up in St. Louis. Her folks were still there. My folks lived on the Illinois side of St. Louis. And so I took a job with a major highway contractor in St. Louis, managing they had 6 asphalt plants around the city, and I managed those. And following that, I had gone to church back when we were in Raleigh. We went to church in Sullivan, Missouri, and met a family that owned the Ditch Witch dealership there, had the whole state of Missouri, and they asked me to come to work for them. So I went to work for them, spent 23 years working for them, 21 of which was in Kansas City. After I went to work for them, they bought the dealership in Olathe, Kansas, and we moved there and raised our family there while I managed that dealership and sold equipment. And we have 2 kids, a son, and he's now married. They live in Austin, Texas, no children. And our daughter and her husband live in New Jersey, and they have 3 children, age 2, 5, and 7. They live up there because he works in New York City, in the city, so he commutes over every day. So when our first grandchild was born, we decided it was important to see him on a regular basis, which we've continued to do. Mm-hmm. So every 6 or 8 weeks, we fly to New York and spend a week or so at their house, and it's been wonderful. One of our greater investments in life is to spend time with our grandchildren and be a part of their life and them a part of our life. So that's been wonderful. Let's see, from Kansas City, I retired early. Kind of before I retired, I had this awareness that I really enjoyed working with people and building the team I had at the dealership was what I considered one of my higher accomplishments. And so I enrolled in a graduate certificate program at the University of Texas, Dallas, in executive coaching. Finished that up, started a little sideline coaching business. And then when I chose to retire early at age 55 from the dealership, we decided the kids were gone. They weren't coming back to Kansas City, according to them. We were ready for an adventure. So we up and moved to South Carolina to the coast. My wife had become a licensed marriage and family therapist later in life. And so we moved down there. She opened her practice down there. I knew I retired not to be retired. I just felt like there was something different and ahead. And so after we got down there, we're there for a few months. I decided I'd go to graduate school and get a degree in counseling and go through all the hoops to get licensed as a licensed professional counselor. So I did that, joined practice with her. We had our own practice down there for about 11 years. And when COVID hit, COVID just changed a lot of things in the world, and it kind of changed our perspective. We realized we really wanted to be back closer to family, to her family and my family. And my folks had actually moved down there to be closer to us. So we packed up their house, moved back to Springfield where we started, and thrilled to be back in Midwest. It's really home. My wife's sisters live close by, and I have 2 brothers, one of them whom lives in Ozark. So we're home and enjoying being here.
Yeah.
That's a lot of stuff to pack into a few minutes.
I bet you know how to pack a house.
I do. I think we've built several houses and moved a lot even when we were in specific locations. So I think I counted up, we've lived in like 15 houses in 45 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Crazy.
Do you like it?
Do I like moving?
Yeah.
No, not particularly. And I definitely don't enjoy the moving process. But I have this challenge that I get bored pretty easy. So I'm always looking for some new challenge. Now, as I've entered the fourth quarter of my life, some of that has subsided a little bit. I still get bored, but I'm not as rambunctious as I was. Actually, along the way, we actually built a cabin in Alaska too. So I spent a bigger part of one summer up there in 2010 moving material around Kodiak Island by boat and hired some people to help me. And we built a remote cabin up there, which we owned for a few years and then sold it. But I just like adventure and new stuff.
Where do you think that came from? That sense of adventure, that sense of like ready to do something new, ready to tackle a new experience, that kind of thing.
Well, that's a good question. I've kind of wondered about that myself. You know, my parents were both children of the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
And for both of them, the Depression was very stark and trying. So to say that they are both risk avoidant is quite an understatement. So I grew up in a household where it was modeled for us and we were taught to be risk avoidant. And I think maybe there was some kind of boomerang effect or something. It's not that I take a lot of big risks, but I don't know.
When you were talking about the early moves as a kid, from Alabama to Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Kansas City, I mean, to some level, the military moved your parents and moved you around quite a bit.
Yes.
I mean, that's not like what you would later describe as your own movement, but
no. In fact, as a child, I hated it. I think as most kids do, they just, it was never enjoyable to be uprooted and moved and had to start all over in a new school and all that stuff. So I actually remember being in like middle school and high school and thinking, I'm going to settle down somewhere and I'm going to be there. But, it didn't work out that way. I really feel like the Lord has led us along this path. I can only attribute it to the fact that he wanted us in different places at different times to interact with different people. I don't know, but along the way, he blessed us in so many ways. There's just nobody on the globe that I can think of that's been more blessed than I have.
When did you, you talk freely about the Lord's presence in your life. When did that become a reality that settled with you?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a Christian home, grew up going to church Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday night. It's interesting. At one point when I was still in grade school, the pastor asked me if I wanted to accept Jesus as my Savior. And I said, well, at that time, I really couldn't imagine what it would be like not to have him in your life. I just grew up with that. But of course, I said yes and that. But then got baptized and everything. But it was really in my teen years when I think I confronted reality, so to speak. And then it's been a process. I don't know if I can nail down a specific time. I feel like the Lord's always been present in my life, at least to the extent that I allowed him to be present. There were times where I was, not as in tune with him as others. But looking back again, being in my fourth quarter of this life, it's very easy for me to see his hand at work guiding Libby and I through life together here and hopefully using us for his kingdom wherever we were. So I don't know if I can pin a specific time.
You mentioned that 4 times moving. You didn't like it early on.
Mhm.
And then you moved quite a bit later.
Yeah.
What's it been like to have friendships develop in the midst of that?
We've had friends everywhere we've lived. As you know, some friendships kind of come into your life, and then for whatever reason, geographic location or one thing or another, they, those relationships kind of subside or even go away.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I think I've learned from all this moving is people come and go in our lives, and we come and go in other people's lives for specific times and reasons. And you can be very close to somebody, but that doesn't mean you always have to be. Now, that being said, some of our very closest friends in life, we only lived in Pittsburgh, Kansas, 1.5 years, but we met a couple there at church, and they're our best buds.
Mm-hmm.
Another couple that we went to college with here in Springfield, they live in Bentonville, super close to them. I consider him like a brother.
Mm-hmm.
But all those years they were out moving around like Mississippi and Louisiana and that, and back to Bentonville for his job and career. We were out and about doing our thing, and Christmas cards and a letter once a year or something. And then when we moved back here, we were able to fire that friendship or that closeness back up and enjoy regular time together. So, we've lived a lot of places and made a lot of friends and still consider them all friends, but we're not necessarily in contact with all of them that much.
I've moved a little bit. I can resonate with some of those things.
Okay.
Some of those sentiments. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. When you were a kid, did you imagine you'd end up digging in the dirt when you were an adult?
When I was a kid, I don't think I've done anything that I imagined I would do what I imagined as a kid, other than doing a lot of hunting and fishing. Now, all that stuff's about 20 years in my rearview mirror now. I don't really do much of that or hardly any of it anymore. But back then, that was the only thing I had on my mind, and I did get to do a lot of that. But other than that, my whole life has been way beyond anything I would have imagined as a child.
What did you think you might do when you're a kid or a teenager growing up?
Oh gosh, honestly, I was so focused on just the next outdoor adventure that career or whatever was very secondary. I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it.
And when did you study at SMS?
Accounting. So, like I said, I had my mind on other things, and I went there and I took a business class, and I liked that. And so I went into the counselor's office and I said, "So what's the best business degree?" "Well, I mean, maybe accounting." I said, "Okay, that's me." So, so when I got out of school, I went to work for an accounting firm, CPA firm here in Springfield. And boy, that wasn't me, let me tell you. About 1.5 years of that was all I could take. I left there, back to the outdoors, went back to construction.
Wow. I did not see that. That's one of those, I didn't see that coming. Accounting. Especially for a people person. I mean, to working with numbers and spreadsheets is a
well, I like numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like numbers too. And I'm sure if you would have stayed longer, you would have got to work with more people, but it's just it's interesting degree choice.
It is. Well, like I said, didn't really have my eye on the ball. I just
Yeah. What did Libby get?
She has a BS in psychology.
Okay.
And then her master's in licensed marriage. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist. So she has a master's in marriage and family therapy.
Yeah. Well, you left accounting, went and you got another undergrad degree in
engineering.
Mm-hmm. And did you expect that to take you down into mining and all those kinds of things?
Yeah, I actually chose mining engineering because it wasn't. Mining engineers do a little of both. They're behind the desk, they're doing numbers and design and this and that, but they're also down in the mine and driving around on a tractor and putting their hands on stuff and, you know, kind of real world stuff.
Yeah. I mean, stuff that makes the world go around, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't realize that there were a whole big bunch of mines east of Salem,
yeah.
Missouri.
Yeah. Big. Like the mine at the time, this is back in 80, can't remember, 84, 85, 86. The mine I was in was 1,400 feet deep and 6 miles long underground. I mean, big. We had big equipment down there, big equipment. Took it down in pieces and reassembled it. Yeah, nobody knows about it, but Missouri's, you know, always been big in lead.
6 miles deep?
No, 6 miles long.
Or 6 miles long, but
1,400 feet deep.
Wow.
There are actually 2 levels. The main ore level, I think, was about 1,100 feet. And then below that, we had a haul level with small gauge trains for hauling ore. It's big. And that's not the only one. There's some big operations over there.
How'd you get down there?
Big elevator.
Wow.
You know, had vertical shafts that went down. And so there was a big elevator that would hold, I don't remember, 15 people at guys at a time, and take you down and bring you back up.
And then your friends from Sullivan, you said, talked to you about the Ditch Witch machine stuff. And
yeah.
So you flipped out of it. Do you ever miss the mines?
Not really. It was a pretty brutal environment down there. I think had the industry been doing better, I probably would have stayed because, you know, I love machinery. I love physical things and problems and solving problems and all that stuff. So, you know, I probably would have stayed, but economic conditions were, you know, causing the operation to have to downsize. And I was actually the last engineer hired, so I was going to be the first one out the door. And I had a family to take care of. So
then when you were talking about the working for Ditch Witch, you said you got to build a team and you
yeah, parts and service, you know, and sales.
And so you got to probably interview people and what were some of the things when you were building that team that you began to really value it, you know, like that went into a team? What'd you look for?
I found quickly that, you know, personal characteristics, integrity, honesty, commitment, those kind of strong personal characters would make a better employee than what they knew or didn't know. We could train them, we could teach them, you know, especially if they were industrious and hardworking. But I found that guys that had stable home lives, good marriage, and that typically would work out better. I felt like that no matter who it was in the building, that we needed to take care of the customer, put the customer first, you know, be honest with them, treat them right. And I think it really paid off.
At that time, you also said you were raising your kids. Your kids came along. Yeah. What would you like to do as a dad?
Oh, gosh. Well, you know, we did the soccer and the volleyball and the basketball and all that, and as well as for a while we had a little cabin down at Bennett Springs State Park. So we'd go down there, you know, go hiking, go fishing. There was a swimming pool there, just do that kind of stuff. And then later we sold that and bought a house at the Lake of the Ozarks. And so we had jet skis and boats and just, you know, stuff. And then they got to be teenagers and they were too busy to do that. And we understand. So, you know.
Yeah. Then it's time to move to another phase of life.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. You talked a bit about like when you got to the age of 55, you went back to school. Like,
yes, I did.
What's it like to go back to school at 55?
Scary. I mean, yeah, it was pretty scary. And I had not, you know, I didn't have an undergrad in psychology, and it was a whole new vocabulary and a whole new set of learning for me. But, you know, when you walk into the classroom and you're at least 20 years senior to everybody else in there, and 30 years, some of them, they're kind of ahead of you, and that's okay. But it was scary. But, just persevered and worked a little harder, I guess.
Well, I would imagine that you probably had to write more papers than you'd ever had to write.
Oh, gosh, yes. I was just telling, well, Becky here just started her grad program. So I asked her Sunday, I said, so have you discovered one of the apps yet that does your footnotes and your bibliographies and stuff? Mm-hmm. She said, yeah, other students, younger ones told me about it. I said, man, when I hit grad school, I didn't know about that stuff. In the first couple of papers, I spent hours doing all that by hand. And is actually my next door neighbor was going to seminary at the time. Uh-huh. She was my age, and she's the one who told me about one of those apps. I use Perla as the one I used. It saved my life.
There was another app that I used for a little while, and then I figured out how to do it all manually, and it was just faster. But
really?
Yeah.
Well, I can't type, so I'm a 2-finger typer.
I went through seminary. When I went through seminary for my master's, I had a laptop, and so it was just laptops were more pricey then than they are now.
Oh yeah,
and it was worth every penny though.
Oh, I bet,
because I did learn to type.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, I've learned a couple times, but it doesn't stick. Wow. I took typing in high school. I took typing in college, but it didn't work.
Well, however you get it done, that's okay. And if it's with 2 fingers, that's fine too. That's quite the shift to go from like mining and sales to then doing counseling.
Yeah.
How did, what all happened internally with you to help get you there to that place?
Well, that's a good question. I like to think that we as human beings should be continually growing over our lifespan. Mm-hmm. The person we are when we're 32 doesn't necessarily mean we're the same person when we're 52. At least that's the way I look at it. And I like to think of it as positive growth areas in my life. And I realized, like I said, that what I really thought my biggest accomplishment was building a good team and building a good culture. Mm-hmm. And I just enjoy helping people. I think that's one of my natural tendencies, is to be a helper and an encourager. And I have to, I don't know. I think, at least for me, the Lord works quietly sometimes behind the scenes and just shapes our heart and shapes our thinking and our purpose. Like I said, I didn't retire at 55 to be retired. I knew I was going to do something else, something different. But after it was a process of about a year to finally, like I used to ask my wife, I'd say, so do you think I could do what you do? She was a therapist. She never would give me a concrete answer. She was encouraging when I said, I think I'll go to grad school, but I don't know if she really believed that was going to work out.
Well, then you joined her practice. So did it work out?
Yeah, it did work out. No, we shared the same checkbook in the same office condo, but she had her practice, I had mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She scheduled herself, I scheduled myself. She had her clients, I had my clients. Yeah.
Yeah, because like live together, then you work together. Like,
yeah. And, there's all the confidentiality stuff, but we would often find ourselves before work in the morning or after work in the evening discussing unnamed clients and challenges. And there would be times when we just had to turn to each other and do the timeout signal like the refs do, timeout.
Yeah.
Can't talk anymore about work right now.
Yeah. So the other thing about, you had about 11 years of that kind of work after you got your degree. What do you think about that? Have you ever thought about how, because a degree like that takes a bit of time.
It does.
To do. And then is the return on investment, was it worth it?
Well, I guess monetarily, really, it may or may not have been. but as in terms of knowing that I helped some people, it definitely was. I had one fella who was a great guy and unfortunately an ex-pastor. And I mean, he just told me flat out after working together for several months, he said, "You saved my life." I mean, he was going to commit suicide. So that's a kind of a dramatic result. But, you know, when somebody comes along and says positive things or like, "You really helped me," or, you know, we're only still married because of our work with you, there's big reward in that for me and my wife. She's the same way.
Yeah. I got to graduate with a couple from seminary. They started seminary at the age of 65. They graduated at 68.
Wow, cool.
And I think one of them lived and pastored about 3 more years before they passed away.
Mm-hmm.
But they were so giddy on graduation day.
I bet.
Like, yeah, doing something together and just
no kidding.
The next adventure.
And who says we can't do that stuff?
I know.
Jesus' ministry his formal ministry was only 3 years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, who says it? In fact, that's one of the things I don't work with youth very much, or didn't work with youth that much, but when I'd get young people, 18, 20, early 20s, struggling with career, you know, they come with this preconceived notion that whatever I major in or whatever direction I go, I'm stuck there for the rest of my life. And that is not at all true. You can choose to go different directions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said about 3 times that you're in the 4th quarter of your life. How'd you know you entered the 4th quarter?
Well, there's always the numerical marker.
Okay.
Birthdays.
Which birthday is it?
Yeah, well, for me, I just had 70th back in April. So so there's that marker. And then I think you can begin to get a sense of it. You have mental shifts. You have physiological shifts. Like with my grandchildren, one of the biggest challenges is to get all the way down on the floor and then get back up. But and I'm a fairly active person, but I wouldn't at all say that I'm a big reader, but I've read enough books. In fact, I've done some training on helping people prepare for retirement and stuff like that. So I'm kind of maybe more aware of that 4th quarter piece than some people are. But for me, it's very real. I'm trying to be very intentional about making the 4th quarter count. And when I say count at this point in my life, you know, my kids are raised, they're doing well in life. They don't need much assistance from us, which is beautiful. We just get to spend time with them and enjoy being with them. But so, it's come home to me that really, being part of the kingdom and doing what I can to serve the Lord and serve others, which I consider to be synonymous. That's kind of where it's at. I've got, who knows, maybe 6 hours or maybe 20 years. I don't know.
You talked about the significance of visiting your grandkids, that you wanted to invest in them. What are some things you want to share with them or give to them or lead them in that you're working on?
Well, obviously, we try to share our values and that, but then there's the fun things. We were blessed last year in 2024, Libby and I, to be able to go with our son and his wife to Kenya on a photo safari. And that was such an awesome experience that we've kind of got big dreams. I don't know if we can make it happen, but we have big dreams of taking the grandkids on safari someday. So, like I said, don't know if we can make that happen or not, but that. And we've want to take them to a dude ranch sometime, and just some fun things that they're not necessarily accustomed to doing living right outside of New York City.
Yeah, that would be different from New York City, going to a dude ranch or going to Kenya.
Yeah.
That would be profoundly different.
Well, they love coming here and just stomping around in the woods, and they love Silver Dollar City. And, this summer we went to Table Rock one day with them. Friends have a nice big pontoon boat down there, and that's the first time they ever swam in a lake, and that was exciting. And they're still talking about that. So that kind of stuff.
Does your inner engineer ever come back out?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just kind of like to solve problems. So, yeah.
My grandfather, one of my grandfathers, he was a lay engineer. And I think he took joy in buying problems that he would help us fix. Or he directed us in fixing on his behalf. It was
that sounds a little bit like the weeds in my dad's garden.
Yeah, right.
He took joy in helping us know how to get the weeds out.
That's right. Yeah, he did. He took joy in that, and then took joy in paying us well too.
Oh, good.
$1 an hour and grandma's cookies.
Yeah.
Yeah. So grandkids are. I'm glad you're spending time with your grandkids.
Oh, we are too.
Yeah,
they love it.
So what's out? Thinking about going on trips with them. What other things are in your future?
Well, I've had so many great adventures in my life, and it sounds strange to say this, but I've been able to do most everything I dreamed of doing as a child or a younger adult. And I'm trying to focus more at this stage of life on just being more than doing. Now, I'm not very good at that because I'm a doer, but trying to focus on enjoying the years I have left with my wife and my kids and grandkids. And like I said, also being of service and blessing others, continuing. We retired from the therapy room for several reasons, but there's also, to keep a license up, it requires all the continuing education stuff, which is expensive and all kind of things. But we didn't retire to stop helping people. We still have a desire to help folks. So hopefully that'll happen.
If somebody asked you, what are some good books that you found helpful over the years, what would you say?
Well, I don't remember books and movies too well, but I like Joe Gibbs racing. Joe Gibbs' story comes to mind. It was a good book many years ago. Of course, in recent years, I've just read a lot of good books on marriage and therapy. Most of our practice was centered around relationships more so than mental health, But Hold Me Tight is a book written by Sue Johnson about love and marriage. Then there was a Christian guy joined her and kind of tweaking that book to a book called Created for Connection that has a little more spiritual influence in it, but still the same science and new discoveries about love and attachment. That's a great book as far as relationships go. Those are the ones that come to mind immediately.
Okay. That's good. I know you've especially talking about continuing in, you've had to keep the literature out in front of you and keep reading. So.
Used to, yeah.
You used to.
Yeah, we've been retired from that for 3 years now. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions, the last questions I generally like to ask folks is, what's a bit of advice that you find yourself sharing, repeating often that maybe you say it to your grandkids, maybe you say it to your kids, maybe somebody else. But what's a bit of advice that you could share with us?
Well, I think one thing I've learned from school, from practice, therapy practice, and from personal experience is that we have to really try to increase our self-awareness. Be aware of what that internal talk is, that self-talk. Not let the negative stuff overpower you or run your life. Be wise, but not fearful. And don't be afraid to pursue your dreams, especially those dreams that you feel like God's put there for you. Change is not bad. Change is part of life. Change happens. We have to embrace it, and sometimes we have to, cause change. But in the end, I think that you have a little bit different perspective when you get to your fourth quarter. And that's a healthy thing. I think it can help you be more intentional and thankful. Man, when I look back behind me in the rearview mirror, I'm just so overwhelmed by the life I've had, the way God's blessed me and my family in spite of times I wasn't necessarily in his will or I wasn't making good decisions. But I think the fourth quarter is a great time for introspection, and it's still a time to grow. We should never quit growing.
Yeah.
So I rambled around about a lot of stuff, but
can I come back with one question
Sure.
on that? You mentioned don't be afraid. How do you not be afraid?
That's a good question, and that's something I'm still learning. I've dealt with my whole life because, like I said, I grew up in a family that was very risk avoidant.
Yeah.
Analyzing whatever it is, whatever the situation is, and realizing what thoughts and fears are rational versus which ones are silly or irrational is one thing. Obviously, praying, asking for guidance, and trusting that it'll come in whatever form. And sometimes it just comes down to trying to make the wisest decision and move forward with courage, I think. I'm not so good at that all the time, but I think that's where it's at.
Well, thanks, Jack. Thanks for your wisdom, and thanks for this conversation.
Well, thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it too. A big thank you to Jack for sharing his story. And in listening today, I hope you were inspired, encouraged, and challenged, and that you begin to behold the really cool people that are around you each and every day. The Really Cool People podcast is produced by Schweitzer Church, Springfield, Missouri. Taylor Likes is our executive producer and editor, and I'm your host, Jason Leininger. You can help us out by liking, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. Until next time, stay cool.